on to the last topic from our learning unit 4. This is probably the simplest of all of the topics that we'll talk about. It's observational learning, and it sounds exactly about what it is. So let's talk about it quickly. Observational learning is based on the social learning theory. The social learning theory is the idea that higher processing animals, so humans, chimps, gorillas, etc., learn by observing and then imitating others. Okay, so in the picture on the right, you can see that the monkey is imitating the monkey on the left, touching the pictures in a certain order to get a reward. They're in the observation phase of research. Basically, social learning theory is stating that someone models a behavior, and then another person is going to imitate it. Okay, the person who came up with social learning theory is Albert Bandura. And Albert Bandura said that observational learning has 4 stages. The first is just paying attention and observing, perceiving features of another person's behavior. So watching the behavior and then watching if it's either reinforced or punished. Okay, so rewarded or punished. So just watching someone else. Then the second step is remembering that behavior. And then finally, the third is then reproducing the behavior, doing it themselves. And then finally, number 4 is being motivated to learn and carry out the behavior repeatedly. Okay, so those are the 4 steps in observational learning and in Bandura's social learning theory. Bandura tested this theory using the Bobo-Doll study. So the Bobo-Doll study is probably one of the most famous studies in psychology. And what it was is in 1961, Bandura decided that he believed that children learn through imitating others who receive rewards and punishments. So what he did is he had children sit in a room and they were just playing with toys, and they saw an adult come into the room and beat up a Bobo doll. This is the Bobo doll over here. The adult used their fists, made comments such as like, get down and things like that. And then the adults were rewarded for their aggression. Then the children were placed into a separate room by themselves with all of the toys and the Bobo doll. And what he found is that children actually imitated what the adults did, including using some of the same phrasing and then even built on it. So added things to the same type of behavior that the model was using. We're going to watch a video on Bandura's study in class. So you don't need to know quite everything about it right now. The idea is that you just have to know that children imitated the adults that they saw being aggressive towards this doll. So how can we use observational learning in our everyday lives? Well, pretty obvious, right? Good news about it is that people who do good, positive, helpful things will then be imitated, right? It has positive, helpful results. Pro-social behavior that is modeled is going to have pro-social effects. But the opposite end of that is that antisocial models, negative or hurtful models and actions also have antisocial effects, right? So when you watch someone doing good things, you're going to want to do good things. When you watch someone doing bad things, you're going to want to do bad things. So we know that this happens. We know that children imitate us. I mean, I know. I've had my daughters already repeat swear words because they just hear me say them, right? So observational learning is really easy to apply. We see it every day in our lives. So how does television play a role? This is a huge topic right now, especially with TV and video games. But specifically, this study was that children between the ages of about 5 and 15, on average, will witness at least 13,000 violent deaths on TV, whether that be in the news, on a television program, in a movie. They're going to witness about 13,000 violent deaths. Gentile and his researchers in 2004 decided to, or showed a display during their research that elementary school children who were exposed to violent television videos and video games expressed increased anger. The idea is that they see this anger on television and then they decide to model it. Okay, there's a lot of research on it. We're going to look at some in class too, because there's some updated research that goes along with it. But the idea is that are these violent television programs that we see on TV making our children act more violently? Other applications or implications of observation, the idea is that we know people don't necessarily imitate everything that we see, right? Otherwise, we'd all be robots. We do know, however, people are likely to imitate people or other models who we perceive as similar to us, so like our friend group or our family, who are successful or admirable. This is why Instagram stars are super big, right? Behaviors are being reinforced rather than punished. So if we see someone being reinforced or rewarded, then we are more likely to imitate that behavior. And then finally, whose actions and words are consistent. Okay, so if we are exposed to hypocrisy, then we are not likely to imitate that person. Mostly because we get confused, right? The idea is that if we see someone doing the same thing over and over again, we're going to want to do that too because we see the same results. Plus, there's other ways that we can get a hold of our behavior and that we can learn new behaviors, not just by observing others. Behavior modification is another way that we use operant conditioning and observable learning, and that is that we can use our operant conditioning principles to modify our bad or unwanted behavior. It's as simple as that. You don't need to know anything more. Biofeedback, this is in your book. This is usually used with anxiety in therapy. And this is the process of learning your physiological responses to certain things and then being able to manipulate them in order to calm yourself down. So for example, if you're in a really anxiety-inducing situation, you can feel your heart beating. You are aware that your heart beating is really fast, and so you tell yourself, okay, you need to calm down, and so you breathe through it. Biofeedback uses some sensors that they put on your body to make you highly aware of what your body is doing. It will tell you if your heart rate has increased. It will tell you if your breathing has increased. It will tell you if you're sweating. All of those things so that you can understand what your body does, and then you can learn ways to control that. Okay. Again, biofeedback is another way that we learn. It's just why it's included here. So I know it's kind of a little bit off topic. Same thing with behavior modification, but they're just topics that they throw at you, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time.